Okay, welcome everybody from all around Australia and beyond to our Meet Your Presenter for Jane Durand. And as you know, we have been running some Meet the Presenter events so our members can get to know our presenters a little better in advance of our symposium in Brisbane, which is coming up very, very soon. So I've invited Jane here tonight to talk to me, and we're going to find out a little bit more about her practice, what inspired her, and how she became the most incredible professional artist she is today. On a personal note, Jane's really inspiring to me because she epitomizes successful artistic practice in all she does, in her commission work, her exhibition work, her teaching work. And she's a mum, and she's a professional, and she's endured and struggled in her practice, and she's victorious. So I'm so happy for her to be here tonight. So a couple of things to start with. I'll just read out Jane's bio, and then I'll move into the first question, and then we'll spotlight Jane, and you can hear from her. So South African-born Ipswich-based Jane Durand uses her art practice to document and better understand the world around her. Originally trained as an architect, Durand's practice also extends to large-scale ceramic and mosaic installations, with her intricate designs incorporated into the architecture of civic and private buildings around the world. Made by hand in her Brisbane studio before being shipped overseas and assembled on site, these installations allow Durand to fully reflect the environment in which they're situated, each mural densely populated with iconography unique to the area. An alumni of the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban, South Africa, Jane Durand is internationally recognised for her large-scale ceramic and mosaic installations commissioned for public buildings and private homes in Europe, the UK, USA, South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia. And you can see one of those incredible mosaics here. So Jane, the first question for you: creative life is never linear, but rather a meandering path, full of opportunities, cul-de-sacs, forks in the road, U-turns, etc. You originally trained in architecture in South Africa, and now your professional life is based in ceramics and mosaics in Ipswich, Queensland. Can you tell us a little about that evolution and where the major turning points were for you?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everybody. And thank you, Caitlin, for the introduction. Very kind words. I started actually studying fine art at the University of Cape Town when I finished school, because all I wanted to do was do art. And that was in the mid-80s, and it was mad. And the things they wanted us to do was throw paint on our canvas and roll in it. And the revered work was use tampons hanging onto canvases and things like that. And I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. So I did a little bit of that degree, and then I thought, when I couldn't cope with it anymore, and I was young, I was just out of school and going to this mad fine art school that was just crazy. The one thing that was really great at that place was the sculpture section, and it was run by a marvelous ceramic artist called Hilton Nell, who was just brilliant and inspiring. So what I gained from that experience was learning how to work in ceramics, and I loved it. I then switched to study architecture, which was a fantastic course to study. And I graduated as an architect. I registered as an architect, and I began to work, but found it very restrictive. And I was really missing working with my hands and doing really creative things. And so after moaning a bit, one of my colleagues that I was sitting next to in an architectural practice shouted at me and said, "Stop moaning and just go and do it." And I thought, okay, I must stop moaning and I must just go and do it. And that was kind of an incentive to really just go and get back into making things with my hands. In South Africa, I ran a huge studio, I had 9 full-time employees. We did massive murals all over the place. I did most of the work that I was doing then was involved with a combine, like it was linking my art to architecture. So because I had studied architecture, and I studied architecture in the time before computers, where at university all we did was sit in the studio all day, every day, and work. And so you formed great relationships with all your colleagues. It was a 6-year course, so you got to know everybody 6 years above you and 6 years below you as you went along. And so I had I had great contacts when I finished studying architecture, and when I started doing the work that I began to do with putting mosaic and ceramic installations on buildings. I had lots of architects who knew me and then said, come and do something on our building. So that was like a real luck and a great start. And so that was fantastic. And I loved working like that. I moved to Australia 12 years ago and had to change my direction a little bit, because doing I did do a few massive projects the first 2 years I was here, which were a nightmare, because finding people to come and work on putting little tiny pieces of mosaic down was really, really difficult. And the cost of employing people in Australia is so enormous. And so I thought to myself, I've got to do other things as well. And I had done a few exhibitions in South Africa, and the bulk of my work had been big installations and then a small amount of exhibitions. And then I kind of changed so that I do more exhibition work here and fewer installations. Having said that, I've done about 1 or 2 installations a year since I've been here. So that's my trajectory.
Thanks, Jane. Fantastic. Very fascinating how one step leads to the next, and you start in architecture and then you end up here making beautiful ceramic and mosaic murals. So you're renowned for your unique combination of sculptural ceramic work that is paired with mosaic application. And we can see a very large scale installation here with ceramic elements and mosaic elements. So what I want to know is, when did you realize that the union of these two mediums was your sweet spot? And then how do these two techniques complement each other in a way that supports your artistic exploration, I suppose, in a way that other mediums don't?
So when I started studying architecture, I still wanted to continue doing ceramics because that's what I had loved out of my fine art course. And I joined a pottery studio where it was really traditional and old-fashioned, and everybody just threw casserole dishes on the wheel. And that's not what I was interested in. And I was sitting doing handwork on my own, and nobody was really helping me because it wasn't what the studio was doing. And so that followed that most of the things I made cracked and broke in the kiln. And so once I had these really broken things that I brought home, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with them? And I started realizing that I could reuse those things in a different way and put them together. And then studying architecture is all about problem solving and understanding materials and design, really. So it's thinking in design and solving problems with materials. And so it just came to me that if I used these broken fragments and I added other bits of tiny broken fragments with that, I could make these failed artworks into new artworks that were not so bad. And so that was the start of it. And it just grew from there, and it grew into a phase where I then got better with my ceramics and they didn't break so much, so I could make really good purpose-made things that then tie in. And the thing that works for me with that combination of ceramic and mosaic is I love playing with scale and texture and pattern, and that's kind of, it really works for me, because if I'm making a huge mural and then I'll know that, oh, if I do something in ceramic there, I can make it, it'll have could have a very smooth texture, and that can then be offset by, really textured mosaic and that kind of thing. So it just works for me that I can do that. And I also like having like the relief. I like having the 3-dimensional aspect coming out of the wall. And it just, I felt that it gave everything a much better life to it. It throws shadows. It livens up the the space when you've got three-dimensional things living with the two-dimensional pieces that you're using as well. So that's really where I'm at with that.
Mm. That unique combination of relief, modeling, volume, shadow, but then also the reflectivity of the test ray as well, and the changing effects of light on the subject. So this is a beautiful slide, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous work here. The subject matter and narrative in your work is frequently focused on nature and the environment. Is this where you draw your inspiration? And do you feel that it's important to have this connection between your subject matter and your medium? So, I mean, with mosaic, I particularly love the fact that when I'm working with stone, I'm working with a material that's millions of years old and it's from the earth. I mean, I think clay is a little bit the same. It's directly from the earth, and both ceramics and mosaics are forms of visual expression that humans have used for millennia to represent their world. So, do your material choices connect you more deeply to your narratives?
They do. I think that my subject matter choices are the reason that I draw. I mean, I always just go naturally to draw from my environment to make things. It's part of connecting with the land that I'm living on, wherever that might be. And and it also grew out of the fact that a lot of the work that I do is installations on buildings. And I feel that when I'm installing something on a building, as you say, it needs to be there forever. Most of the contracts for public art projects want you to have the work there for at least 20 years. That's your contract, that the work must last that long. And you would hope, I mean, one of the very first huge installations I did was like about 26 years ago now, and it's still there and it's still fine. And so when I do something that's going to be living in a space for so long, I feel like it needs to have a connection to that space. So it needs to have a connection to the land that it's living on. Because I feel like I always think of my work as living in a space and living on the land where it is. So if it's on a building, that building is on some land, and so it needs to connect with where it is. And so that's why I draw the inspiration from what's around me and what's around in that land. So if I'll go and look at a site where I might want to do something, I will stop and maybe pick things up off the site, like pick up a leaf or pick up a pebble or pick up something that's going to give me some kind of feeling of connection and inspiration. And I'm never lost for inspiration if I go for a walk in the bush, or if I'm doing, the huge image that you had a little while ago of that big installation with the scaffolding that was in Ireland. And that was a big mural that went on a castle wall. And so when I went to look at the site, I went for a big walk through the woodlands in that area and drew my inspiration from that. And so the little creatures and the imagery and everything that I used on that mural came from that land. So that's really where I get my connection with my subject matter.
Mm.
I hope I've answered your
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my next question is really around you how you've built your career. So something I've observed in the lives of many creative professionals is that we have these portfolio careers. Unless you're particularly blessed to become a world famous practicing artist, generally speaking, artists and in all forms of creative practice have to build a career out of parts, so is this true for you? And your career's been made up of several streams. So you work on large scale commission work, and then you have your own exhibition work, your own artistic practice, which is really highly evolved. Plus, you teach regular classes, and you also take on mentoring programs. And for example, you're coming to our symposium to talk to our members as well. So how do you juggle all these different things? What's the priority? How do you work out what the priority is? And do you have any advice for um, emerging artists who are looking to create a life of creative practice, how to get that balance right? I mean, I know there's not one way, but what's your view on the most successful way to build that creative life?
It's I mean, I've worked as an artist as my full-time job since about 30 years ago. Yes, since like 1995. And it's really hard. And so you have to be open to doing lots of things. There was a point in my career where I think in some ways you've got to be flexible. You've got to be adaptable to change. You've got to be able to reinvent yourself all the time. Um, I've gone through periods of having so many large commissions that's all I've focused on. Um, when I moved to Australia, I had to do another big change because I had to reinvent the way I did all of my work because I didn't have the same type of studio setup that I had before. Um, I do try now to keep an even balance, and I found that really works for me. So I try to have an exhibition to exhibit at least once a year somewhere. Even if it's not a big solo show, it could be like being part of a group exhibition, but just doing that. And then it's nice to get commissions. Those aren't like that's not something you can organize because you've often got to wait for them to come to you. You've got to wait for somebody to commission you to do something. So this year, for example, I've got a big wall that I'm about to install on a hotel in Brisbane. I was supposed to install it in March. Go figure, the builders are always late, so they're running late. I was going to install it 3 weeks ago, and they said no, they still haven't got it ready. So I'm waiting for them so I can install this. It's a nice big wall on the pool deck of the hotel. I've got this an exhibition I'm working toward, which has just been postponed, thank goodness, because I was starting to get stressed about it. It's a big solo show, so I have to fill the gallery with my work. And at the same time, I do classes and workshops all the time. Um, with things like the commission that I had that then gets postponed or changed, those are things that you'll get a chunk of money from, but you never know when it's coming because there's so many unknowns. And doing classes and workshops gives you some kind of regularity, and it gives you kind of a little bit of a regular income so you can actually buy your groceries and pay your electricity bill. So I find that just being able to be adaptable is really good. It does get a little bit overwhelming sometimes. You need to be really organized. You need to arrange. Yeah, you need to think about your time. I'm quite good at thinking of my time in slots. I'm a very visual thinker, so I like almost blot out blocks in my mind or on my I draw up calendars, and I'm always drawing up calendars and work program charts and things like that so that I know what I'm doing because it can get overwhelming when you're juggling all sorts of things all at once. I mean, I've got a big public art project that I've just been awarded that's going to be starting in October. So I've got to factor that in as well. So you keep having to make sure you're staying organized and I mean you're always getting people saying, can you put forward a design for a proposal? And then you might be working on your exhibition and you think, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do this. And you've got to kind of really organize your time and try and make it work. It's hard. There's life as well. There's children. I've got an elderly mother now that I'm caring for who has very advanced dementia. And so there's lots of things that will get in the way, but it's all about trying to make it work, I guess, and having a supportive family and friends around that help you go. Yeah.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, you have an exhibition coming up, and that's going to be at the Paper Boat Press in
Yes.
Ashgrove, I believe. This was going to align perfectly with the symposium, but unfortunately, the date has shifted for this. But for those members who are up in Queensland, don't forget to get along and have a look at this when it does open. Maybe you can talk a bit more about this, but more broadly, um, about exhibitions. How do you approach it? Do you theme these? Do you take a thread and run with it? Is it a collection of different pieces? Is it all made along the same story? How do you go about building an exhibition?
Each time that I do an exhibition, it's I think of a theme. Theme isn't really. It's based around a central idea, I would say. I don't really like using the word theme, but it's based around a central idea about something. And then I'll try and make all the work relate back to that idea in some way. So it can be, so one of the exhibitions that I had, for example, was it was a solo exhibition at the Ipswich Art Gallery, and it was all about my experience of Australian landscape. And I wanted to look at the different lands, and it was all about kind of when I moved to Australia, not feeling any way connected to land, and how I've kind of really made an effort to try and connect to the land. And so I've gone bushwalking and multi-day hiking through lots of different landscapes in this country. And so that work was all about my connection to the land and my experience of Australian landscape. And so every piece that I made for that exhibition was, I pre-designed the exhibition. I always go and measure up the walls and the space inside the gallery and plan what I'm going to do, and make all the pieces based. So I've set it all out. So I almost design the exhibition first and then make all the pieces to fit into that overall design that I have, so that it all holds together and feels like a cohesive whole. So I'm not just exhibiting just random things that I've got. Like some people say to me, I say, "Oh, I'm so stressed. I've got an exhibition coming up." And they say, "Oh, why don't you use some of that other work that you've still got?" That I say, "No, because I'm wanting the exhibition to read as a really well designed thing, and I want to make the pieces specifically for that." And I think that's important, and so that it all reads together as something cohesive.
So it's a fresh
It's a
presentation.
fresh, it's a fresh lot of, it's a new body of work every time. And then another thing that it enables me to do is it's another challenge. So it's always trying to grow, because if you're an artist, you've got to keep growing. So I never want to do the same thing that I did previously. So I'm always trying to reinvent how to do something, maybe do something a little bit differently. And if I have another exhibition and I haven't made it better, or I haven't grown somehow from the previous one, then I won't feel like I have achieved anything. I'll feel like I've failed. So I think I use the exhibitions as kind of a growth chart, as a way of inventing something new, trying to put something together in a different way, then I end up experimenting a lot, which is mad, because you've got a timeline and you've got a deadline. And then I start thinking, oh, let me try this new thing out. But it allows you to grow as an artist.
Absolutely. So on the screen at the moment is a slide which um, advertises your upcoming lecture masterclass, which is taking place at the Symposium Fragments and Flow in Brisbane in October. And the title of the masterclass is Mastering Scale, the Making of Architectural Mosaic Installations. Can you tell us a little bit about what the participants can expect from this masterclass and who it may be suitable for? Because there are still, I think, quite a few places available in this lecture, which is, in my opinion, not to be missed, to be honest. So I'm puzzled. So tell us, what will participants learn, and who is it suitable for?
Well, it's suitable for anybody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select some of the large scale projects that I've done over the years, and as well as some smaller domestic ones, and talk about them briefly, and talk about what the thinking behind them was and the process that went into making them. And then I'm going to take one specific project and work through it step by step to show you all the processes that are involved in getting something like that together and getting it installed and finished. And so anybody who even wants to make a splashback in their kitchen would benefit from this. Or if you wanted to do a small mosaic in your garden, or you don't have to be wanting to make a major architectural piece in order to gain something from this. A lot of the students that I have who come to my classes, that's what they want to do. They want to make something for their veranda wall, or something for a friend's house or whatever, and they benefit from learning what the process is, because the process is similar if it's a small thing or a big thing. It's just much more stuff when it's a huge thing, and it's a little bit more organization and planning, but the processes are similar. And so it really is something that anybody can be interested in, and it's also nice to see what can get done and what can be achieved using mosaic as a medium.
Absolutely. So because this is a lecture, you are accepting a larger number of participants. So there's still 14 places available in that lecture. So that is available to book on the MAANZ website, and anybody can book into that. So Jane, it's been so lovely chatting to you this evening, and thank you for sharing so generously about your practice. But before we close, it would be nice to share this video from Gardening Australia, because it's been very nicely produced, and it does give us a bit more insight into your journey. So let me share that now. Let's make it a bit bigger. Here we go.
I draw my inspiration from the bush. I love the natural environment and finding the birds and the plants that I see on my walks. My name is Jane Durand, and I'm a ceramic and mosaic artist. I do large installations on buildings, and I also do smaller sculptural pieces. So I like to work with clay a lot and make pieces with clay, but then I also like the combination of using the little fine glass mosaic pieces and the different textures and patterns that that offers. I was born and grew up in Durban in South Africa, and I always loved doing art. When I was a child, we lived very close to the Botanic Gardens, and I used to pretend that was my garden, and I'd always go walking off with a sketchbook and a box of paints and sit somewhere in the gardens and do my masterpieces. When I finished school, I went to study fine art. I moved to Australia in 2014, and when I first moved here, I found it very, very difficult. I thought, why did I come here? I was very depressed when I first arrived. I thought I was never going to make it work, and I really missed the African landscape. And everything was different and strange, and I felt no connection to the Australian landscape at all. And I was also 46 already, and that's hard when you trying to break into an art world and an art scene in the galleries and you don't know anyone. So I decided to join a bushwalking group. I didn't know the plants and I wasn't familiar with them, especially the trees, because I grew up learning that gum trees and wattle trees were baddies and they were alien invasives where I lived. And then I slowly but surely started to learn about them, and I've grown to love them. Once you start learning the names of the birds and the names of the plants, you can connect with them and you feel like you know them, and then it made me feel a much better sense of belonging in this place. At first I was really taken in by all the big birds. I loved all the cockatoos and the lorikeets and all the crazy, really colourful birds that just looked like they escaped from a very fancy pet shop. I love the little wrens, the little fairy wrens which hang around my garden. I just absolutely love those. We have the little blue wrens and their little wives who are brown, but they're just so gorgeous. I love the little double-barred finches. They're just so quirky and sweet and lovely. I like to make sculptural pieces with the birds, with the natural flora that they would normally associate with, and have it in a museum jar. So it's almost like saying, perhaps this is the only way we'll see these creatures one day, because they'll be all gone. I do have a little collection of taxidermied birds in my studio, and they are my models, and I use them when I'm making something because it really helps me understand how this creature is built and how the wings work and how the feathers are joined and little things like that, because it gives me a greater understanding of what puts that animal together. I was part of an exhibition at the Museum of Brisbane, so I made a very large piece celebrating the Brisbane bush turkey and all its wonders. They still look prehistoric. They still look as if they're from the dinosaur era. They really lend themselves to being a design because they have such quirky proportions and interesting details. They've got sideways tails and they've got really strange, ugly heads, but they're just incredible, and it's now part of the Museum of Brisbane's permanent collection. I'm having an exhibition and making a series of vases for this exhibition. I'm making quite large pieces, and I'm focusing them on Australian native flowers. I've looked at the bottlebrush flower, and I often see the blue-faced honey-eaters hanging out when the flowers are blooming. So I'm combining these birds with this flower for the vase. So I've stylized the flower a little bit and made a large vase. I'm doing another one for a grevillea plant. I love grevillea flowers and how they attract the little honey-eaters. I've got a vase for noisy flowers. So it's a vase that I've put cicadas onto, and the cicadas are so noisy, and so I just imagined that some very bright and loud flowers would go very nicely in that vase. I've also got a vase for billy buttons. I think they are quite interesting. They're very sculptural flowers. They're just a little round ball on a long stem, and they're quite straight. And so I've played around with their structure a little bit and made a vase for them. And I've also got a very great, enormous piece that is going to be for eucalyptus flowers. I have made them in sections, which then get placed on top of each other. That's the way that the traditional Dutch tulip vases were made, and each section has spouts for the stems of the flower to go into. I like doing sketches and drawings to work out in my head what I'm doing. I always think through drawing, and then I'll start making the work out of clay, and it just takes a long time. I had a beautiful workshop space in Brisbane with 100 square metres that I had for years and years. But as the years have gone by, my mum, who lives with us, she's got dementia and she needs a little bit of help and care. Come sit down, ma'am.
Thank you. Had a lovely day.
Bernie's supposed to be making dinner. I made the decision last year to not stay in my beautiful workshop space, but to rather set up at home. And so I've rather taken over the house, I think. What did you do this morning?
I went to the most beautiful music place. I can't remember the name of it right now.
That doesn't matter. Luckily, my mum is very, very sociable and friendly person, and she's got a good social calendar, so a lot of her friends are taking her out and about. Yes.
Oh, look at Willie now.
I know, he likes painting too. The nice thing about it is being at home, my dogs are very happy. They're very pleased that I'm with them all the time. So how's your painting going? That looks good. Doing the work that I do is completely a labor of love. I feel a compulsion to do it. It's what I really want to do, and it makes me feel happy. You don't earn a lot of money doing art.
Welcome everybody to this wonderful exhibition.
It's always so lovely to see your pieces in the gallery space rather than in your messy studio, because they always look so much nicer in a different setting, and you can look at them again in a whole new way. I've been dreaming about this body of work for a long time. The longer that I've been in Australia and the more that I've understood what Australia is, I think my work has progressed in that way.
There we go. That was lovely. I really enjoyed that, and it helped us understand a little bit more of your journey, Jane. So thank you for coming along this evening. It's been really lovely speaking with you and learning more about your professional practice and your inspiration, your methods, your challenges, and your life as a practicing professional artist. So I will leave it there, Jane. I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon in Brisbane and meeting you in person for the first time.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you very much, Caitlin.
You're most welcome. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a lovely Sunday night, and we'll see you all online or at the symposium soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.